So welcome back to another episode of Usapang Musiko Season 2. So I think more or less this will be our final episode for year 2020. And hopefully next year we will add more content, more guests for you guys to uh, experience or talk to through my show. And it's been a tough year to say the least, no? And I think it's really been tough for a lot of musicians, especially those who are in the scene of gigs, who are really into that type of work as a musician, no? Be playing in bars, hotels, gigs, weddings, and different events. As we all know, it's like the last industry to really stand up. And we're slowly getting back to the groove. I see a lot of hotels and bars opening up, having live musicians again for quite some time in the last 9 or 10 months so. And also weddings have been popping up here and there. We've- we have a few coming out, no? So hopefully it gets better by as the year passes, and by 2021 we might not be at the same level we were a few years ago, but at least we're able to get back on track on what where we left off. So for today's episode, I want to talk about paying your musicians right and on time. It's a really big problem going on, not just here in the Philippines. I mean, even abroad, even in other countries. It's always, there is this stereotyping that happens that being a musician should is not a full-time job. It's not something you can get a lot of money for. It can't pay your bills, no? But why is that? And I watched Soul, the new Pixar film, and it has this kind of problems being talked about as well. And with that being said, it means that it's still rampant in even in the biggest countries that are really having a lot of musicians, like in the US, no? Since we still talk about these things in films and movies, so it means it's still prevalent in our time. And why is it so? No, why don't people give that much value to live performance? Is it because you can get a CD that can play for you, or is it because they don't think that it's something worth the money to pay for it, or is it because they feel insecure that these people are getting paid this much for doing sort of, let's say they think it's little to no work at all, but they don't realize how much money, time, and effort it goes in to be able to play so freely and play so beautifully, diba? Because we don't see the process that musicians go through. We don't see the process that the money they spend on lessons, the money they spend on gear, the money they spend on training, the time they spend on training as well. We don't They don't see that. They only see the finished product. But once you realize that that finished product won't be there without so much effort going on to it, it's going to be it's not going to work out the same way as it's working out for them right now, no? So that's one thing to realize. So why do you need to pay your musicians, okay? I like to always use this analogy when people say that talent fee is expensive. It's like, okay, when you go to see a doctor, even though he doesn't even touch you, like is he only using a stethoscope or looking over, looking at you without even touching you, he can charge you a substantial amount just by checking you, diba? Sometimes they just read blood work, right? And they can charge you like, I think in the Philippines, the standard is 500 to 1,000 pesos. No, that's like $10 to $20 per consultation. And you don't bat an eye. You don't tell that doctor that, uh, doc, your professional fee is too high. You don't say that to your doctors, right? because you accept that that's how much it costs to get checked up. But what about musicians? Don't you see that it's the same thing? Huh? When I graduated, I realized that okay, we're not really far off from the stable 9 to 5 job people. No? I mean, we're not there in that level of financial stability that you get paid monthly, you have pension, you have all these types of benefits, but we're more closely linked to the jobs of doctors, of can I say lawyers? I'm not really familiar with how lawyers work, but you know, those kinds of things that you get paid by the hour or by the consultation. It's the same thing with musicians, no? So we work like doctors. We're freelancers. A lot of us are, no? Especially those in the gig industry. So if you think about it that way, why don't you bat an eye when your doctor asks for this much, but when a musician asks for that much, and then you don't realize how much money they spent to get lessons, to get training, to get good gear. No, it's like okay, if you will pay for the time that I spent learning, you won't be able to pay me back for the time that I'm gonna give you. So we are essentially musicians are still underpaid and undervalued because you get a lot of a lot of the person's feelings, emotions, and translate it into art by paying such a minimal amount for it. No, we don't look at musicians or give enough credit to musicians to pay them right. No, and I think we should all understand that this is what they do for a living. And if you can't enjoy what they're doing for a living by paying the fee that they charge, it's better to not get musicians at all. No, that's the thing. Especially in events, some people in the events industry just want to have live music, but are not really prepared to pay uh, enough. And the sad thing about this is those people who aren't really professionals can still get a gig for musicians, no? And that's the sad thing. We can't really control. It's a pretty gray area for everyone, no? That's why the rates become more competitive. The rates are getting lower because there are people who are amateurs who want to get into the same uh, job or work, but would accept essentially lesser than the standard value of uh, what should be considered a standard, no? And that's quite sad to say the least that we get competition coming from all over the place, knowing that we spent a lot of time and effort, but people don't actually notice, especially those who don't really understand what they're doing, notice the difference between the two, and they just get the cheaper one because why? It's more practical, diba? And you can't really blame the consumer because the customer will always want something that they get a good deal out of. But you can't really lower down your rate so much that you can't afford the living. And that's quite the hard thing about being a musician is. You have to balance out being able to perform at your level and being paid at the same level because if you're not, you're gonna waste time. But a lot of musicians will still play for you even though you don't play them uh, at their level or at their expected rates. But here's another thing, no, it's not just paying them right; it's also paying your musicians on time. So back to that doctor analogy, you don't get go to the doctor's clinic and tell your doctor after your consultation that doc, I'll just transfer money to your account. You don't do that, right? Why? Because you already rendered your the doctor's service has already rendered it to you. So it should be hand in hand. No? You give he gives you the service, you give them the payment. It should be like that. It's as simple as that. It's very, very uh let's just say it's common sense to actually buy something and pay for it at that time. Why? Because you've already rendered the service. You can't do that on you can't do that in supermarkets. Can't do that in department stores. You can't do that in retail outlets. Tell them, oh, I'll transfer the funds later. So you have to pay them on time. Paying your musicians on time. Because it's not about how much it is. It's about integrity. Being true to yourself and being true to the people who serve for you. No. I'm not gonna mention anything or any names, but it's been a hot topic ever since. But it's really important that you pay your musicians well. No, not just for clients, but also those who serve as agents. No, pay it in a way that it covers the cost for musicians because basically the rates here in the Philippines are not that high. No, it's basically covering the cost of transportation, the cost of food, and what else? To pay the bills, to get through this month or this year. That's what you're paying for the musicians. You're not paying for their skills anymore. It's different. If you're gonna pay for the skills, it's gonna cost a lot more than what you're paying them right now. Huh? Just think about that. For me, I'm gonna uh, focus on how much my parents and me has spent to get training. No, I've been studying for almost 11 years, 9 to 11 years. And let's say that I got lessons at 500 pesos per week. So multiply that by 9, 11 years. How much? That's just for lessons. That's not including my commutes, the food, transportation, the instrument maintenance, the gear. You see, if you want to pay for that, you can't. Basically, you can't pay for those things, the training, the time and effort. You're just barely paying for them to go to your event and play for you. That's the only thing you're paying for. And then you just get that from them. And it's a sad situation right now because again, there's only a few weddings coming back. Not all musicians are getting the time or the gigs that they usually get. Usually December we don't sleep anymore. No, we just go home, get new clothes and go back to the road. That's how Decembers are for musicians. But right now, we don't have any of that. I mean, it's like December covers the whole year for musicians. It's like this is the time that I can get as much money as possible so that I can spread it over next year because there are dry months like August, July, when else? April and May, I think. Yeah. So basically, it covers a lot of the expenses of musicians, especially those who really just are living and dying by gigs because that's the only thing they know how to do and what they're good at. Now, if you can't really pay for your musicians, please don't get them at all. No, it's a sad thing. This goes out to clients, but of course to agents now. Please don't try and make it seem that without you, your musicians can't get jobs. It's not like that. Because the thing is, even though you don't pay your musicians on time, they will still give their best. I guarantee that. No musician will go to a gig and play half-heartedly. Why? Because that's their break. We have this saying that you're only as good as your last performance. So if you fail on your last performance, you won't be able to get another one. You That's your only shot. And you won't waste that opportunity to play. And the sad part is some people would abuse that. No. Just because they did so good. The clients don't know that, oh, this is what's happening to the other side. But musicians can't really fight back to the system. Why? Because if they don't perform as well, no other musician will hire them back, right? That's just how it is. Even though you're the best and you're not getting paid, you're not going to ruin your own career by playing bad for other people. It's not going to work out well for you. No, that's why they still preserve that. And performing is not just something that you can do half-heartedly. It goes deep. It goes deep for musicians. And for people to actually respect what we are doing is what we all want as musicians. As in, this industry is too small. Almost everyone knows each and everyone, whether you're in the Philippines or not. Sometimes even in the Philippines, the circle's so small that your friend might know this friend, might know that friend. It's that small. And once you do something bad to one person, everybody else will know about it, will talk about it, and you have to suffer the consequences. That's why you need to really understand how it is for musicians, how they work. No? And you shouldn't really abuse how musicians are. Because no musician plays for the money. I know I'm speaking for a lot of people, a lot of musicians here. Not all or most musicians don't play for the money. The money will come if you do good, if you do great. It will come. I know you not a lot of people get rich as at being musicians, but it's really just that fulfilling that you don't think about the money. But of course, if you work for something, you would want to be compensated for it, right? Nobody likes to give free work with without them knowing that it's free. I mean, a lot of musicians will play for you for free. You just ask, given that they can play for free. But it's not that way. It's that you got me here because your clients are paying you. So you have to pay me back what you owe me. It's that simple. I can't uh talk about the deeper things about those things, but basically it's that simple. If I render a service for you, pay me how much we've talked. I don't care about the rates of other musicians. We exchange rates, so that's my rate. Pay me my rate on time, right? It's that simple. Yet a lot of people still mess that up, and a lot of clients still think that it's not gonna work out like that. And it's a sad part of our society. I think not just here in the Philippines, but around the world. No? We're still undervalued. I think it wasn't like this at all before. No, I think because of technology, na din, the people don't see the true value of having live music in your events, and maybe that's why this is happening to the industry right now. The people are abusing the love of the craft of musicians, and it's a sad thing to see a lot of your colleagues who are really just uh, hanging on to gigs and events for their livelihood. No, I'm fortunate enough that I am able to teach and create content for you guys aside from gigs and performances. But not a lot of people can teach and do a lot of other things on the side. That's still part of music in general, no? And we really, really hope that everything gets resolved and at least society gives the musicians a chance to actually be appreciated for what they are, no? Because you aren't paying for the music, you're paying for the time. The music will always come as long as the musician is playing. You have to understand that. And with that, I'll leave you. Again, this is the final episode. By the way, we just hit over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you very much for all the support that you've been giving me this past year. And hopefully, we'll continue growing and growing and growing through the next years to come. And I wish you all the best. Advance Happy New Year to everyone. This episode will be airing on Anchor on January 1st. So, Happy New Year to everyone. And this has been Usapang Musiko Season 2. I am Ryan Monakil. Please do follow me on all my socials. Links down in the description below. And also, listen to this podcast on Anchor on all major podcast streaming platforms. And I'll see you on the next one.